What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Bleach: 1,000-Year Blood War. This is actually going to be episodes 12 and 13 because we got two episodes that came out on the same day. And with me, as always, have Blue Spade.
Wow. I mean, this was definitely the way to end the core. Despite the fact that now we have to wait 7 months before the next core arrives next year, which sucks because, before they would have it consistently like every single week, alongside some amount of filler episodes. But this, like, it's pretty obvious that Perot wants to make the animation a lot more consistent, with what they presented us with this season.
Well, we did hear too that the production staff were saying they wanted the animation quality to actually be better in part 2 than it was, than what we've seen so far. But I mean, I don't really know how it could get much better because, like, based on, like, from what I've seen so far, like, it looks really good. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it could always get better, but I've really been impressed with what I've seen. So I'm wondering, like, what that's gonna look like, once they're finished with it.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the art style we've seen like 10 years ago to the animation quality we saw last week with how they animated, the rain sequences. I mean, that.
Yeah, well, and a lot of that has to do with the new director Taguchi bringing his own visual flair to the series, because it's not the original director, which I think was Noriyuki Abe that did the original anime. So this is basically like Taguchi's interpretation of Bleach, which I definitely like. As much as I do like the original anime and its art style, like I have to say I really like this. I would have to say I actually prefer what I've seen from the 1,000-Year Blood War.
Yeah, I mean, everything we've seen this entire
it's much
season,
more cinematic, I guess.
Yeah, almost like you're watching this in the theaters right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the character artwork and their animation style are almost exactly the same as they were back in the end of 10 years ago. But now, now they, with improved shading, improved lighting, more detailed effects with how realistic each environment is right now. I mean, that
yeah, I mean, really specifically, there's more attention to the environmental lighting as well. And yeah, like you mentioned, the rain effects. There's, like, I'm just kind of blown away by how good the rain effects are, especially in these in this episode, and the previous episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so this is a continuation of what happened during last week's episode, in which Masaki ended up saving Ishin from I guess that hollow, the white hollow that was created by Aizen. So we pick up back at the Soul Society with Ishin giving out his report to Yamamoto about what happened. And of course, he intentionally leaves out the detail about Masaki saving him. So of course, Yamamoto, like, sort of suspects something is off, but he kind of lets it go soon afterwards. While at the same time, Masaki is heading back home, but in the process, she's starting to feel the effects of the hollow that infected her the previous night.
Yeah, and yeah, we can see that there. Yeah, it's mostly because of the white, like, biting her, just coming up and biting her. I guess that led to her getting kind of, like, infected by the hollow or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, she starts to feel weird, and she it feels like she's about to faint at certain points, or she just is about to lose consciousness. We see she even ends up bumping into Urahara, and before she just ends up completely, like, passing out.
Yeah. Well, not before that. She goes back to.
Oh well, yeah.
Yeah, she goes back to the Yoshida mansion, and what was it? I think it was Soken's mother confronts her about what happened the previous night, and Soken wanted to keep this entire thing secret, but unfortunately, his maid ended up reporting the whole story to his mother, which doesn't sit well with her. And of course, Soken tries to call her, his maid out on that. But of course, his maid, who we find out is eventually turns out to be his wife and Uryu's mother. So the reason why she told his mother the truth was because that Masaki was supposed to be married into the bloodline, I guess, to be part of the pure bloodline of the Quincy family. But another thing I want to point out about this whole arranged marriage is like we find out that both Masaki and Soken are cousins.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I mean, I don't know. Like it's kind of weird if that is the case. They did say they wanted it to be, the bloodline to remain quote unquote pure. So I guess if you think about it in that sense, it kind of makes sense. But
I mean, considering that the Quincy's have mostly been extinguished up to this point, so there's like no other Quincy's, no living Quincy's other than like Yuhava. Well, that's the real pronunciation of the main villain of the story, Yuhava.
Yeah, Yuhava. But yeah, basically now her blood has been like tainted because of her being infected by the Hollow. So that's the reason why, of course, that Ryuken's mother wants to kick her out.
Yeah, but so of course Soken takes it upon herself to try to save Masaki because of the hollow hole that she's developing in her chest. But in the process, they're being chased by a hollow, which in turn Ishin steps in and saves them both.
Real quick too, like I don't know if you noticed, but like there's a part, like there's a scene where we see Ryuken's mother's leg, and there's like something had happened to it. Like I don't know what that was about, because it never really gets brought up again. Like we see the back of her leg, and it looks like it's been I don't know, like it looked like it was either like burnt or something. But I was kind of wondering about that. Like
there's still like a couple of other things that kind of glazed over by the end of this episode. Yeah, especially what happened. Of course, the post credit scene in which they showed off much later. But yeah, so Soken was trying to save Masaki. I guess he was trying to bring her to his father, who's somewhere off there. But it's likely that he's not going to make it in time. So Ishin steps in and saves them both from the Hollow. Then, and of course, Soken, blames Ishin for getting Masaki into the situation in the first place. And then, of course, Urahara steps in and proposes like some method to try to save Masaki. So he takes them both to their shop to give Masaki some amount of treatment. But the only way to save Masaki, it's not really like a 100% cure of sorts. He does mention that because the Hollow infected Masaki, that he can no longer become like a pure Quincy. So the only way but that she can like remain stable and live out as a human being, in a sense, is to have I guess Ishin go into a Regai body and
the Gigai.
The Gigai. I said the wrong thing. So I guess in a way, like he's trying to use like the combination of a human and Soul Reaper in Ishin to, I guess, do some kind of transfusion in a way, or make a vaccine of sorts to give Masaki to stabilize her condition. So Soken was initially hesitant to believe that Ishin would be willing to save her, but of course Ishin just doesn't hesitate to save her, even though
Urahara explains that he would need to give up his Soul Reaper powers, and he'd no longer be a Soul Reaper, and he'd have to live in the body of the Gigai, and his like his soul would be tethered, or his reishi would be tethered to her or something.
Hmm.
So he could never, like, as long as she's alive, like he could never go back to his previous life as a Soul Reaper, basically.
Yeah. So eventually, they move forward with the process, and Masaki's condition does fortunately end up stabilizing. But like I said, her abilities of a Quincy end up being diminished in the process. So so both Masaki and Ishin both live out the remainder of their lives together as human beings, and of course, soon after Masaki ends up graduating, both her and Ishin end up opening, of course, the Kurosaki Clinic uh, in town, and then they eventually end up dating, and then we see them. Um, and of course, Ishin mentions around the time, certain times that that Masaki would call him out on, on his lies of sorts. And of course, like I said, it eventually gets to the point where she gives birth to Ichigo and their two daughters.
Yeah. And we also get an explanation as to basically like why Masaki was killed. Which has to do with some kind of a Ishin explains as some kind of a selection process that is done by Yawa, where he tries to select a Quincy to this what was it gonna, like, worthy of joining him or something, or
Yeah, it's because like it was possible that Masaki could have defended herself against Grand Fisher, but due to unfortunate timing, I guess it was Yuhaba ends up removing her. I guess it was more of a
the Blood Vein.
The Blood Vein, the defensive ability that she uses as a Quincy. Unfortunately, it was removed from her during that confrontation. While at the same time, Uryu's mother, who is of course Katagiri, was who Soken eventually marries, ends up passing away roughly around that same time. So it's because so Ishin believes that because of Yuhaba's intervention, he eventually just removed Masaki's ability to defend herself, and similarly he did something that caused Katagiri to end up passing away due to mysterious circumstances.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty tragic because, like Ishin explained, like Misaki could have easily defeated the Grand Fisher, but because of what Yuhaba had done, she, that's how she ended up getting killed. And it's kind of crazy because, as people who have just only watched the anime, this is probably some pretty shocking information considering, we don't really, the only thing we knew previously regarding Misaki's death was that, it was Grand Fisher who had killed her, and there wasn't really much else to it.
Yeah, but of course, as we know now, that there was more to the whole situation than we realized. Now we know for a fact that Masaki was capable of still defending herself against Grand Fisher, but due to Yuhaba's intervention, that didn't end up happening. So
we also get an explanation as to how Ishin had regained his Soul Reaper powers at the beginning of the Arankar arc. And it had to do with Ichigo's basically I guess his hollow fully awakening within him or something.
Yeah.
And that had caused basically Ishin's Soul Reaper powers to come back.
Yeah. With the whole situation, of course the first episode with Rukia giving Ichigo his Soul Reaper powers, and the whole and the whole sequence of events that we've seen over the years, in which Ichigo does eventually unlock the hollow abilities hidden inside him, which eventually does bring back Ishin's abilities as Soul Reaper back. So
maybe it was also too because Ichigo needed to fully control the hollow, because if you remember when he first was able to do this, he didn't really have full control over the hollow, and it would just go crazy.
I mean, there was that one time he did go full on crazy during his fight against
Yeah,
Fiora.
when he the Vasto Lorde form.
Yeah. But yeah, eventually, but yeah, I guess once Ichigo figures out the whole truth, that he eventually decides to go back to the Soul Society. No, not the Soul Society. What was it? I forgot that location.
The Hoden, or what it was, Ninomiya's place.
Yeah.
But before that too, like he steps outside and we see that, what was it, Ikumi? She had returned like Ichigo's Soul Reaper badge.
Yeah.
And of course, it's pretty much perfect timing because he's just basically regained his resolve essentially, so he's gotten his Soul Reaper badge back.
Yeah. So eventually he gets summoned by what was it? Namiya's bodyguard or his assistant to teleport him back to the same location where he got kicked out. So Ichigo goes back to the same location to fight against what were those things called again?
Yasuichi.
Yeah, the Yasuichi. So instead of fighting them, like literally all of them end up kneeling towards Ichigo, and then Ichigo walks up to one particular one, and then he selects it to become his chosen Zanpakuto, which turns out to be like a splitting image of him, but his hollow form in a ways.
Yeah, and that was also what we saw in the opening as well.
Yeah. And while his new Zanpakuto is being forged, alongside like many other with Nimiya's like other assistants, I guess, we see like a montage of all the other Soul Reapers trying to regain their Bankais that they end up having stolen from them during the battle. We see
yeah. Well, in particular with Toshiro, he said like he needed to basically start from square one because he doesn't want to be like overly reliant on his Bankai or something like that.
Yeah, and of course I think what was it? I think it was, I forgot his name. It's was it Shuhei?
Oh, Shuhei.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Shuhei.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember every single character in the show.
Yeah, Shuhei basically like he goes off with I forget his name too, but it was one of the former Vizards. I guess to train, and another one of the Vizards shows up and I guess is trying to basically train him to I guess perfect his Bankai or something.
Yeah, I mean, well, he doesn't have a Bankai.
Or I guess teach him Bankai then.
Yeah, and then we see Komamura going back home to his clan to I guess get the blessings of his clan elder to help him train. I guess develop like a secret technique that his clan uses, and well, of course, like his clan head kind of berates him over his over his uses of hiding his appearance initially, but of course I guess in a way they ended up fighting at the end of, I don't know, at the end of that scene. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he basically, the clan elder, like, he's basically saying like he's willing to fight the clan elder to I guess prove himself or something like that.
Yeah, and then we see Soifon's lieutenant, I guess at the same time playing with his little sister, while Soifon herself is, I guess, trained to redevelop her Bankai, similar to how Toshiro is doing, I guess. And I think there was
I was kind of, speaking of Soifon too, I was kind of hoping that we might at least see Yoroichi in this episode, but she's kind of nowhere to be seen. She hasn't really shown up throughout any of part one.
Yeah,
I remember like I think we saw her in the initial trailer we got too, but yeah, we haven't seen her at all.
No, I mean I was a little bit surprised by that, unless if it's a scene that's being adapted for one of the later cores. Maybe I'm
guessing it's something that happens later on.
Yeah, I think that should be all the Soul Reapers in that scene, right? Or did we miss out on anyone?
I don't think so. Basically, like the scene, like most of the first half of the episode is just trying to show that all the Soul Reapers are trying to train in preparation for like a potential like second invasion from the Quincy's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. It was I think there was one scene with Kurosuchi as well. And like it was one of the guys from the research and development department.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, they were looking.
Yeah, we
for,
find out that Akon is still alive, but I thought he was dead. Actually, like I was surprised that he's actually still alive, just because the condition he was in that episode when he was able to get Ichigo out of the jail, or to summon him. It looked like he had been killed, but I guess he survived though. Survived that.
Yeah. And I guess they're trying to find out where their captain is, but of course they notice the Kurotsuchi's I guess his spies or whatever, his what do you call those things he has laying around all?
Yeah, it's like some kind of weird surveillance cameras, I guess, that he's placed around there.
Yeah. But in turn, like Akon also placed a surveillance camera inside Kurotsuchi's room, or wherever it is he's doing his research on, and they find like some kind of blurred image of whatever Kurotsuchi's making. I guess maybe improving his Bankai of sorts.
Yeah, I really don't know. It's like we really can't see what he's doing. But yeah, I mean, I would assume that maybe has something. Maybe it's what he's doing.
Yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a follow up to the whole Kenpachi and Unohana thing, because we don't see him.
Yeah,
I mean, we know that Unohana was killed during that fight with Kenpachi, and I'm a little bit disappointed that we just didn't get a follow up to the whole thing. Maybe we might by the next.
I mean, they could have shown like Unohana's funeral, like, or if he buries her or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, we don't get anything about that.
No. But yeah, so we go back to Ichigo, getting back. Well, in the process of getting back his Bankai, but in the process, he has his Zanpakuto. He has to say his farewells. I guess in a way, his farewells to Zangetsu, in which he finds out. Well, I guess in a way, he knew that the spirit of his Zanpakuto was Yhwach in a sense.
Yeah, well, before this scene too, we also get introduced to the other assistants of Ninamaya, and like how he's going to forge the Zanpakuto.
Yeah,
it's pretty weird. Like I at first, like, I was kind of surprised because it didn't look like a forge; it was just like a waterfall place. But eventually, like, yeah, it becomes like a forge. But like each of them has some unique thing they do to help out with the forging of the Zanpakuto.
Yeah. I mean,
like one girl uses her twin tails to like hold it down or something. I think.
Yeah.
Another girl takes her teeth out to form a hammer.
I mean, I guess one uses her tears to cool down or quench the blade, and of course the red-haired girl, of course, is fire, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, Maya eventually tells Ichigo to say goodbye to Zangetsu, and like I said, he eventually talks to Zangetsu. I guess the spirit version of Zangetsu, which he reveals he's actually a part of Yhwach in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, which is I kind of wish I hadn't spoiled myself about that. But I mean, I guess if you're observant enough, and also the opening kind of spoils it too. But I mean, if you're observant enough, you can kind of like look at Zangetsu and look at Yhwach and feel like they look very, very similar.
Yeah.
There's even apparently like, I mean, people had analyzed this, but like, when Ichigo first meets Zangetsu in the original anime, he actually says his real name. Of course, it's like you can't hear it because it's blurred. It's actually like there's like some effect that goes over it, so you can't really hear exactly what he says. But people like had listened to it, and they said like the syllables, sound if they make the sound Yhwach or something. So like he actually does say it, but you just can't. Well, you just can't hear it, I guess, unless you really like analyze it like that. But yeah.
So we find out that Zangetsu wasn't really Ichigo's true Zanpakuto form. Rather, he was just the spirit who was intentionally suppressing Ichigo's Soul Reaper's powers to, I guess, to a bare minimum. But
Well,
eventually, over time,
he was also the representation like of his Quincy powers. It's also revealed in the episode too that like every Quincy has like a piece of I think it was like Yuhaba's soul within them or something, and that's how he's like Zangetsu materializes as a young version of Yuhaba when Ichigo sees him.
yeah, and of course, he's like I mentioned before that he intentionally suppressed Ichigo's Soul Reaper abilities, but eventually, like I guess he had a change of heart in a ways, almost like he was almost like a father figure, being proud of his son, sort of speech in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, he basically explains like as he'd been watching Ichigo, I guess like his feelings started to waver or something like that.
Yeah, and of course, he says his final goodbyes and ends up vanishing from whatever that. What was it that
it's like Ichigo's inner world, and also like once Ichigo confronted him, it started to rain, which kind of represents like the way Ichigo is currently feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And you also notice like later on the buildings start to completely like crumble away and stuff. So his world is like being destroyed. I guess is the way to interpret that.
It's also interesting that the color scheme in that scene is exactly similar to the opening. The whole like pink or whatever colored.
It's mostly black and white.
Yeah, the black and white and pink or red hue thing. But yeah, so eventually, Ichigo does manage to develop his new double-bladed Zanpakuto, which is like almost his similar design to his previous Zanpakuto, but with I guess it's hard to describe the
there's like a short blade and a long blade, and I think like one of them is supposed to represent his Quincy abilities and the other is supposed to represent the Soul Reaper side.
Yeah. So Ichigo does eventually reveal that the blade, the Zanpakuto is actually a manifestation of himself, and rather than just Zangetsu or his hollow form. So that's pretty much how the episode ends, but not before we see one final post-credit scene in which Yuhaba finally comes face to face with Uryu.
Yeah, and he was brought there by Haschwald, as we saw at the other post-credit scene. I guess Haschwald had brought him there. But yeah, Uryu is already kind of like donning the attire of the Walden Reich, I guess. So it seems like he's already made up his mind, and he's deciding to join up with them. So yeah, they did say that we are going to get some more anime original scenes involving Uryu in part 2. So maybe they'll go a little bit more into like why he's joined up with them. But yeah, I did like that they added a little bit more in the anime, because people who've read the manga said there's not really, he just joined up with them, and there's not really a lot that really like led up to that. It just happens. So I like that they kind of at least built up to it.
Yeah, because I was a little bit disappointed with how brief that the whole situation with Uryu's mother passing away out of nowhere. I mean, we do know what we do find out who she is, but of course we only know how she ended up passing away, which is because of course Yuhaba's intervention of stripping certain Quincy's abilities away from them, and I guess Yuhaba's like intervention caused Uryu's mother to pass away of sorts, but we just don't really see the situation of how that happened.
Yeah, I do kind of wish that maybe there's a little bit more elaboration on that. But,
yeah,
for the most part, like I thought these 2 episodes were pretty great and a really good way to end the first part. And I was not expecting to get a trailer for part 2, especially like right after these episodes aired. So that was a pretty big surprise. And we already have a release date for part 2, which is in July of next year.
Yeah. I was hoping for, I don't know. I was kind of hoping for like a March release date, just so we can get these episodes a lot quicker.
But I honestly, I'm fine with waiting. Like, if we can get, I mean, especially since the production staff are even saying that the animation for part 2 is going to somehow be even better than part 1, which is hard to imagine because I thought part 1 looked really good. I haven't really had any problems with the way it's looked. So I really, like, I'm fine with giving them all the time they need, to be honest. If it means we're going to have something that somehow even looks better. I mean, I'm fine with that. I mean, we've already waited so long just to get the Thousand Year Blood War anime. So
yeah.
I guess, Bleach fans are used to waiting. So, I mean, we're, but yeah, I mean, what are your overall opinions on this first part from the anime?
This exceeded my expectations, just having to watch this entire season. I mean, it's hard for me to say like which one's better. Either it's this and Chainsaw Man, because both have like really exceeded my expectations for this season so far. Yeah. I mean, of course, we are getting continuations of potentially both seasons. I mean, well, Bleach is already confirmed to get a continuation. We don't know about Chainsaw Man, but it's obvious that it's possible that might get a continuation. In terms of what I might expect for next season, maybe next season or next core, whatever it is learning more, getting more anime original scenes with Uryu. Of course,
well, people said that the next part is there's going to be a lot of fights, and I mean, based on the trailer, it looks to be that way. So I think we're definitely going to have more action scenes.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that we got the flashback with Ishin and Masaki this season. I initially thought that would have held it off maybe in the next few cores, but at least I'm glad that they finally presented it in this core.
Yeah, well, I think that also might have a lot to do with the pacing being not really like really fast, but it at times, I guess, going at a more brisk pace, just to and also cutting out unnecessary scenes.
Yeah.
So they could get to that point.
My guess is it's possible we might expect like some kind of filler arc of sorts with the original Gotei 13, because as we know, Kubo like put out that that illustration with the original Gotei 13 several weeks ago, midway through this arc, and if I'm guessing that it's possible that they might present like a pastime story arc, like 1,000-year ago arc, featuring Gotei 13 against the Yuhaba and the other Quincy's.
You mean like kind of expanding on some of the scenes we already saw with that?
Putting in like a much bigger story of of the conflict between the original Gotei and the Stern Ritters back in the past, of like what led to their whole extermination, like supposed extermination in the first place, and what led to Yuhaba's revivals like 1,000 years later.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying, this definitely exceeded my expectations. I honestly would have been fine if we just kind of had the same level of quality that we had, I guess, more specifically at the end of the original anime. I'd be fine with that too. But I did not expect it to look as good as it did, or have as good animation as it had. I've been really impressed with Taguchi's direction of the series, and a lot of the choices he's made visually and in terms of just his general directing style. Like I said, I definitely feel like I much prefer it over the original anime, even though the original anime is still good in a lot of ways. Like I feel like I definitely prefer this version of Bleach. But yeah, it's definitely like one of those series that has come back after so many years. You don't really expect it to come back the way it has, and it's just like it's been a really big surprise that it's just come back and just and been like, looked like this and had so much effort put into it. Like I just never thought it would receive this kind of treatment, I guess.
I also appreciate that they finally made some new music tracks in this new season, because
they got, we should mention that too, like, they got the original composer to come back, of course, Shiro Sagasu, and they got some, I mean, I like that they got him to come back, because I mean that was one of the things that people really is memorable about the original anime, is the soundtracks. So I think it was definitely important to bring him back.
Well, I mean, not only that, was just making brand new tracks rather than having to recycle the same track over and over and over again, because I can remember like many of the tracks in the original anime like in my head on repeat over and over again, but with new tracks that they put into this new core, it feels fresh. I mean, I noticed that there was like some versions of remixed versions of like some of the previous tracks that they had in the original, but I felt like it was more original to that made it fit into this new season more properly.
Yeah, I definitely like a lot of the newer ones. I think had to do with the Stern Ritter, like especially during the invasion part of part 1. The more like I guess the militaristic sounding tracks. I really like those. I felt like it really fit really well with the whole like theme of war. It sounded like it definitely reminded me of that. But even the remixes of the original tracks I thought were really good. Like the remix of On the Precipice of Defeat and Number 1, Nothing Can Be Explained. He brings those tracks back, but he does something new with them. So I like how how they did that. But yeah, I'm just I am also a little bit upset that we're gonna have to wait so long for part 2. But like I said, I'm fine with it as long as it means we're going to get something, of probably exceptional quality. So I mean, I'm okay with it as long as that's what we're getting, as well as new content as well. But I don't know if you have anything else to say about these last 2 episodes.
I really felt like it probably capped off this core in a way that'll get us hyped up for the next one coming up in July. But yeah, it is a little bit disappointing that we have to wait 7 months for the next part. I mean, I would have liked that they would have brought the next core back maybe in at least March, because it's just my it's just me, just like me and every fan like waiting for 10 years, and we just wanted to see the end of it already at this point.
Yeah, but honestly, like I prefer if they do it this way, because otherwise it would be like the original series where it was just there was no breaks and it had to just keep going, keep putting out episodes, and I mean, and the quality, quality of some episodes are better than others. I mean, it's but I really feel like the quality kind of did suffer at times because of that. Doing it this way, they can focus more on just putting out top quality stuff. I would think, kind of like what they do with My Hero Academia, where it's just it's not one continuous thing; it's broken up into seasons. So I definitely prefer that they're doing it this way. But yeah, so that'll be said, guys. I guess until next time, we will see you all later.